All right, well, unfortunately, work is basically non-existent right now. We've been at a standstill for basically the month of March. There really hasn't been anything done. As you can see, we still have a lot of dirt that has to be taken care of. This is what's holding us up. The electrical got cut in a few spots, and so basically it was full of water and needed to get pumped out. They found that it was cut in another spot. So I don't know, we're waiting for them to fix it. And then once they fix it, they'll use the machine to put all that dirt back. And then they'll put down grass seed and straw. You can see we still have a lot of dirt area that needs to be covered up. So kind of unfortunate, because the longer it stays dirt, the longer we don't have any grass growing. Anyways, in the meantime, I'm attempting to get downhill with a lot of equipment because, oh my God, this is a little dangerous. I have a lot in my cart. Okay, by the way, this cart, wonderful purchase. I think we got it at Tractor Supply. Anyways, what I'm gonna work on today, because we have a beautiful 75 degrees, no workers, so I'm gonna come out and work. What we're doing is building the fence. So you can see we added 2x4s here. We have some Simpson ties. We have 1/2-inch galvanized wire. And then what we're doing is basically putting these boards on top so that it gives it kind of a nice finished look. So I have more boards. So basically I'm just gonna cut and start putting things in. All right, so just using the framing nailer to put the 1x4x8s in. I'm using my hip to hold it up. That's how you work with one person. Once I get one side, then I go to the other side. Oh, and what we're gonna do is bring it up, make sure it's nice and level. It's not so bad. We're gonna use a little hip action again. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in. One more here. And another one. We will be staining it. This is pressure treated, severe weather wood, the 2x4s, the posts, the 1x4s. So we're gonna give it a couple months and then we'll stain it. All right, we did as much as we could today. So I got some of the top pieces of wood on, and then of course those sidebars that I did. All right, the guys were here for a minute this morning to take their machine back. I have harvested all of these rocks basically from that huge dirt pile that was up there. So they were gonna leave it and have me use it in my garden beds, but it's just pure clay. And I mean, they couldn't even shovel it to get it into the beds. So I said, you gotta use your machine to spread it out. But as they started, it showed a lot of rocks. And so what I've been doing is 1x1 or 2x2, however many I can carry. I've just been grabbing them from this pile and then walking them down and putting them in as kind of a little border. So, I mean, our property is no short of rocks. That's why we have rock wall. So I figured I would just harvest what rocks I could before they are covered up. But you can see this is kind of the remaining dirt pile. All right, well, there we are. It's another beautiful day. I've used all the wood I could with my gardens. There's nothing left for me to cut up and hang for right now. So that's why I'm out here doing what I can do. All right, we are out here today getting ready to build a gate. Well, 2 gates. So the garden's gonna have a gate on both entrances, and we will have, there's about a 7-foot opening. So we're gonna do roughly 3.5. I've never built a gate before, so we will see how that goes. We got the rest of these top crossbars on And I don't know how people do it with construction, but the inside corner, what we did is we just basically cut out some of the board on each side so they kind of fit together like a puzzle piece. I don't know if you can see that, but I think it looks pretty good. You can see the whole inside is done. And then we're gonna figure out what we wanna put on top, if we wanna do kind of a trellis type top. And then for the opening, I think we're gonna try and do some nautical rope to keep the deer out. So we'll see if that works. Otherwise, we'll do another crossbar and more wire. All right, stay tuned. We'll see how this gate building goes. We have a little bit of a crisp morning here, but I wanted to come out and kind of give you some progress on our garden that we've been building. We went taller with the gate because obviously there's a big space here. In the original design, we were gonna run another 2x4 and more wiring, but it was such a pain to do the wiring. So we're debating on what to do in that space. We're thinking of running maybe like a nautical rope, or you can see we've got some solar lights hanging. That might deter the deer. We're not really sure. This is uncharted territory. But anyways, we knew if we built the gate like smaller, that you can't obviously add height to it. This has to open. And so we did go taller with the idea that something would be here to deter the deer, possibly another 2x4 with more wire. But that basically gives us the space to add and make it look right. So then for these, basically I measured the distance and gave myself an inch off of the distance. So that basically gives you, quarter of an inch here. I don't know, probably a quarter of an inch here, quarter of an inch. Basically gives you some space to allow the gate to fit. So you're not going to do the full measurement. So measure the width, took an inch off. We measured the height, figured out how high we wanted it. Then we put these 2x4s together with wood glue, and then using the framing nailer and air compressor gun. Then for these crossbars, this was definitely the hardest. The first one I did, I was at a 45-degree angle and there was a gap, so there's just no way that was gonna work. So we ended up having to go buy a different miter saw that gave us deeper than a 45-degree angle. So this is probably like 55, 56, but as you can see, fits great. We've got tight fits at the top and bottom, and what we did is wood glue and then again the framing nailers. For these, we put the crossbar at the bottom by the hinge because from what I was seeing online, the gate and weight of it, there's a lot of pressure that goes towards that direction. So you want this bar at the bottom where the hinge is. We still have to add the wire to this, but so far so good. And then everything else is pretty good in here. We haven't done any plants yet, but in the beds I do have the clay, the compost, the leaves. I've got my compost bins. I've got my garden beds with my trellis system. So I'm excited to see what grows. Traditionally, we just put compost in the bins and things just kind of grow from our compost. And I have a whole blog about that if you're interested. It works in Virginia. I don't know if it'll work in colder states like Wisconsin, which is where I'm from. But what we would do is we basically compost all season and using the compost bins, and then we till it up and let it sit all winter. And then come spring, things just grow. Oh, case in point, right here. This is what happens when you compost, because you're composting all your vegetable scraps, including seeds. This looks like a little squash plant. All right, hold on, there's actually more. We also have this one and this one. That's exciting. We already have a start to the garden beds. All right, well, welcome to my garden. Thanks for joining me, and I will have a list of all the supplies we use to put the garden together. In case you want to do it yourself, I'll also include the dimensions because I think I have a pretty good layout with the beds that I have. So if you want to create something similar, I'll give you the dimensions we used. All right, I'm gonna give you my garden update. We got the gates done. The only thing that we haven't done yet is putting in the crossbars. We're still undecided on what we want to do. Mainly it just comes down to what's gonna be effective in keeping the deer out and what is cost efficient. So as you can see, we got the wire mesh in. So for the bottom mesh, it's 3 feet wide, but that wasn't gonna work for here. So the original one we bought, 3 feet wide, 100 feet long, that was enough to do the entire bottom. Then we had to basically get a 50-foot roll of 4 foot wide, and we were able to line that on the back, and that fit pretty well. I also found these on Amazon, which worked really great because, as you can see, we don't have much space on the 2x4, so we needed something pretty slim. I'll probably switch out the screws. I use the screws that came with it, but they're obviously rusting out. But for our needs, this works pretty well. Certainly not professionals at building gates, but works. And then we do have a lot of volunteer plants from compost, which I wasn't sure that we would get much because we did the majority of the composting in metal bins that were in our garage. But pretty excited. As you can see, this bed has lots of volunteer plants. We've got some, this is going to be squash, zucchini, or cucumber. Hard to say right now. We also have, it looks like a little potato plant here. These look like tomato plants coming, so I'll have to thin those. And then over here in this bed, you can see we have lots of plants as well. We do have some potatoes in these grow bags. So I basically put the compost in all these beds, so you can see we have lots of volunteer plants coming from the compost. Traditionally, I just kind of let things grow, and I embrace chaotic gardening, and whatever grows from our compost grows. So while things are still pretty little, I'll have to kind of move some things around because we've got just some random plants basically everywhere in every bed. And the Vigo garden bed composters are working well. We've transitioned to them. I'm no longer using the metal bins that I had in the garage. These by far are my favorite. I have been composting for over a decade now, and I love the Vigo in bed containers. I mean, these are just so easy to work with, easy to access, easy to throw your compost in, easy to shovel out and then throw into the beds. If anything, I would add maybe a couple more. I have 2, and that seems to work well for us, but having a couple more is always nice. So I mentioned I'm going to have a list of all of the supplies we use and measurements. So if you wanted to create something similar, this garden space is 30 feet long that way, and then 23 feet wide. And I have 8 of the Vigo garden beds. I've got the trellis system with 2 larger ones, and then some more narrow, smaller beds, and I'll link those. I'm not sponsored by them, but I will link my Amazon affiliate links just so you can, if you do decide to purchase them off Amazon, then you can support my gardening addiction. All right, I'm gonna go enjoy this gorgeous day that we have, and I hope that you can get out and play in the dirt as well.